Speaker, how are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm glad to talk to you. I'm in Seattle today.
A beautiful part of the world. I've been there many times. Let me start with this big story in Afghanistan, where the repercussions of this Koran burning by American forces there continues to cause a lot of bloodshed and loss of life. You've been very strong on President Obama about his apology. You felt it was completely unnecessary. I want to play you a clip from General Allen in Afghanistan, commanding American troops, which is what he had to say about it.
I offer my sincere apologies. As I have this morning in phone calls to a number of the senior Afghans here in Kabul, I offered my sincere apologies to the President, to the government of Afghanistan, but most importantly to the people, the noble people of Afghanistan.
I suppose the obvious question, having heard the General there, is whether you've now changed your view about President Obama's apology, because clearly he was taking his lead from the generals on the ground, and you've always said if you were president, you would do exactly that.
Well, you don't know that he's taking his lead from the general or the general took his lead from the president. I have a very different view of this. First of all, I haven't heard any Afghan apologize for an Afghan killing 2 American soldiers and wounding 4 others. I haven't heard the president ask for an apology from Karzai for the killing of 2 American soldiers and the wounding of 4 others by an Afghan soldier who was probably paid by the United States, trained by the United States, and equipped by the United States. What you have is deliberate fomenting of religious extremism in a situation which wouldn't apply, for example, in Syria, where Assad routinely has bombed anything he needs to bomb. It hasn't happened in other countries in the Middle East as long as it was Muslim against Muslim. And look around the region. Churches get burned in Nigeria. Does anyone apologize? Churches get burned in Egypt. Does anyone get apologized? Of the people who are Christians in Iraq, 1,200,000 when we arrived, 700,000 have fled the country. Has anyone apologized? In Malaysia, churches are burned. Does anybody apologize? There's a one-sided traffic and outrage which we tolerate and, frankly, we help enable. I'm not defending burning the Koran, although the circumstances in which they were being used would strike me as in itself having been blasphemous, because as I understand it, they're being used as part of a process of passing out messages from people who were imprisoned. But I don't know all the details. What I do know is that we have this one-sided game where our troops get killed. Nobody apologizes. And now we're supposed to be the ones on defense. And I understand General Allen's in a difficult situation. But if President Karzai is not prepared to apologize for the killing of 2 Americans by an Afghan soldier, the wounding of 4 others, I think that this is a two-way street, and we ought to assess deeply exactly what we think is going on.
So you think it was wrong of General Allen to issue that apology then before we received an apology, or the American forces received an apology for the death of the 2 soldiers?
I think had the general and President Karzai had a joint appearance and said jointly, this is a very unfortunate circumstance. Clearly, the Americans did not intend to cause religious violation of religious tenets, and clearly the Afghan government deeply regrets the killing of Americans. I'd feel dramatically better. But I think this one-sided street, which is typical of the Obama administration, of going around the world apologizing for America and never demanding respect. These are troops serving under the commander-in-chief, and he owes them some protection. And I think that it's very unfortunate that the rules of engagement seem to be entirely one-sided.
Isn't it a given fact, though, given all the controversy over the burning of Korans? We had the crazy American pastor doing it last year and creating huge havoc for American troops on the ground. Given its sensitivity, given how delicate that particular issue is with people in Afghanistan, wasn't it pretty awful that this was allowed to happen in the first place? I mean, the incineration of the Quran,
it was a mistake.
Various copies of the Quran.
Piers, you ought to talk to Congressman Allen West, who was a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army, and ask him how complicated and confused battlefields get, how tired people get, and ask him how one-sided the rules of engagement are. I think we have gotten to a point of bending over backwards where we pretend that this is an orderly process. It's not. These folks are engaged in war. And, a lot of young men and women out there are doing the best they can. And there is an unfortunate tendency in this administration to always assume that it's the Americans who made mistakes. It's the Americans who need to be apologized for. And I'm pretty unrepentant on this. I'm tired of our young men and women being ambushed, bombed, shot, and then we're being told we have to be sensitive. Well, I think the other side ought to be a little sensitive, too.
Final question on this point. Given what you've been saying, and you're very strong with your rhetoric here, there have been many people that agree with you. It's a debate that's been raging all day. If you were president, are you saying that if this had been your situation on your watch, you would not only have refused to apologize before getting an apology from Hamid Karzai for the death of the soldiers, but you would also have stopped General Allen from making an apology?
What I would have asked for is a joint appearance. I think we need to have, look, if we can't be side by side with our Afghan ally, we don't have an ally. Now, we've just seen in Pakistan this same pattern play out, where we learned that for 7 years the Pakistanis had been protecting bin Laden. We learned that he was in a large compound in a military city less than a mile from their National Defense University. And what have we learned since then? Did the Pakistanis go out and find the people who had been protecting him? No. They went out and arrested the person who helped us find him. Now, I just think across the whole region, we'd better get a grip on reality, and we better reassess how we're doing things in a very profound way, because I think the region is spinning out of control, and I think it's getting more dangerous.